Sadia, when it comes to blended families, we've heard that blended families can be very challenging on a marriage. What advice do you have for people who are thinking of merging?
Well, it's not for the faint of heart. I can tell you that. I mean, it is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. Um, I have so much advice for people trying to blend a family. One thing I would say is really solidify your marriage and make sure that you make time for just your marriage. So there has to be time because you're navigating a brand new marriage and a brand new family. And we got lost in this part of building the family for a while. And it took us a while to recognize that we had forgotten about the marriage. So setting time aside, maybe at the end of the day, setting time aside at the end of the week, setting time aside once a month to just be married and not just center the kids in everything. That's number one. Number two, the role of disciplining your kids is yours. So not to give your spouse the responsibility or role of disciplining your children and not to take on the role of disciplining your partner's children because they do not have that bond with you as they have with their parent. And that was a very intentional choice among both of us from the beginning, alhamdulillah. And so now, when one of my husband's children does something, I will talk to him 9 times out of 10, not the child. With the child, my job is to be safe. My job is to be fun. My job is to be loving and caring, right? Another thing I did is with the kids early on is I really affirmed the role of their mother. And I made it clear to them that I'm not here to replace your mom. Your mom is so important and she's so amazing. And I never spoke badly about her. And I never spoke badly about and we never spoke badly about my ex-husband either. That wow, lucky you have 4 parents instead of 2. And wow, what a great idea. She took you where? Wow, that's really cool. What did he do with you? Oh, show us how to play that game. So that the kids understand that we are mature enough and we're not mired in constant like conflict with one another, but we're actually all on the same team trying to do a great job raising these kids. I reached out to my spouse's ex early on to sort of disarm her and say, hey, like, help me, give me tips. I want to be close to your kids. I want to be a good stepmom. Like, tell me what to do. Give me, um, and she was surprised by that. But actually, like our relationship's pretty okay. Like what, 5, 6 years on, I look up to her. I admire so many aspects of her parenting, and she's done a great job with the kids. Honestly, they're really, really good kids. So I I wanted her to know like I'm not a threat, and the center of my heart is the same thing that's at the center of your heart, the well-being of these children, right? So that was, I think, another thing that I would advise everybody to do because it can get really petty and it can get very competitive and stupidly so. And the thing is, who are you really harming at the end of the day? Who are you benefiting with that, first of all? And who are you harming? You're harming the children. The children pick up on it 100%, right? So I know early on, like we all attended an event for one of the kids, and my husband's ex came up and hugged me, to greet me. And the kids they were like looking at each other like this, you know what I mean? Like they were all like awkward, but I thought it was such a great gesture. I really respected her for it. And I said to myself, I'm going to really respect this person as much as I can because that must have taken so much courage, you know? And it's not easy. Like you were once married to this man, right? Another very powerful moment was like when my husband met my ex and he was very gracious and put his hand out first to shake his hand and these things matter. These small moments matter. And the message that the kids get is, wow, we are being raised by such good people. Like their respect goes through the roof, right? And I think any beautiful family culture, the foundational sort of value that you want to build that culture on is respect, mutual respect. So, alhamdulillah. And then, of course, the rest of the advice would be just around the same advice I would give to a regular family, not like that's not blended. Like you have to have some shared values. You have to have a vision for what kind of family you're trying to build. You have to take time out to spend time as a family. Like initially in those years, the dinner at the table was a non-negotiable. Everybody has to drop what they're doing, sit down, and we are going to eat dinner as a family, right? And it was awkward at first, but then now it's not awkward at all. And the kids quite enjoy that time, you know, half an hour of the day where everybody's together and we're eating dinner together. And I got that from my own upbringing. Like dinner was non-negotiable in our house, and we all sat down, and it's some of my best memories, actually. Very intentionally building the bonds between the children through fun. I think people underestimate the power of fun in building like bonds between individuals, whether adults or children. And then also remembering that we are two original families. So I had to be very intentional about creating time away from them for just me and my two children, and to ensure that my husband was creating time for just him and his three children, and even one-on-one, so that no child felt lost in the mix. Because when we had five kids, there's of course more extroverted, louder kids, and there's quieter, more introverted kids. And then there's kids with higher needs, right? So they would take the airspace of family time, right? Three kids in particular tended to dominate, and two kids got very, very quiet. So we had to like make sure that we're evenly distributing our time and our efforts and our energy. We have to be very mindful about it. And I know someone might listen to this and think, oh my God, that sounds exhausting, but it's worthwhile. It's worth it. Imagine at the end of the day when everybody's together and having a great time, and you know, like we're on a vacation and the kids feel like genuine 100% siblings to one another, and there's no they're laughing. Like it's worth it. All those small investments of time and energy are worth it. So that would be another tip. Um, of course, there was conflict. So, how to resolve conflict in ways that are affirming, loving, respectful, what to do when things get off track, as they inevitably did, how to be the mature one in the room and make sure that we're not like perceived to be either siding with our own children or overcompensating by siding unjustly with our stepchildren, right? Because that was also a concern. And yeah, just trying to, instead of resisting. Another thing I just remembered was like instead of trying to focus on the way we were, trying to build something new together, trying to take the good from the families we lost and trying to build a new family together and getting everybody on board with that vision. So one thing my husband and I are both quite good at is getting the opinions of the children. And I don't realize that until I'm around other fathers that just sort of boss their kids around. It's a very top-down approach. And when I see that, it's always jarring for me now because my husband's very, perhaps too democratic. You know what I mean? So he's like, so here are some options. What do you guys think? What are your opinions about this? And then the kids have their opinions. They feel respected. They feel affirmed. And it just creates this culture where everybody has weight. Everybody has importance. Everyone has value. Um, Perhaps something I'm good at is finding just the right thing to make fun of every child about. So they all recognizing their quirks, recognizing their little flaws, turning it into jokes. And then we have now shared inside jokes as a family, where we're kind of making fun of, but also simultaneously celebrating this child and the unique things that they bring to the table. So, alhamdulillah, that has been one of the most fulfilling and most difficult things I've ever done is building this family. And then in the middle of all of that, we had another baby. So we actually have six. And the baby was instrumental because the baby was related to everybody. And this baby, he's 3 now almost. He has grown up with so much love, so much attention, so much like he is the happiest little child you will ever meet, mashallah. And the reason is his siblings adore him. And um, he is so honored and respected in this house. Like it's not even me and my husband, it's five older siblings, and he's the star, right? So that to me has been one of the most beautiful aspects of all of this. And now they share blood with, like through him with one another. Like they're cemented for life now through this child. So that's been really beautiful to watch as well. And they're all so, they care and they're so concerned about him. And watching that has been absolutely beautiful. On Eid morning, I'll give you one little anecdote about that. Everybody's involved in dressing him up, right? Every single person. Okay, I'm going to do his hair. No, don't do it like that. Do it like this. I'm going to pick out the shoes. Okay, we want to make sure like this star of the show is dolled up. You know what I mean? And I didn't expect that. It was such a like unexpected side effect. And it's beautiful. Like to see them bonding over care for their younger sibling. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Alhamdulillah.
So you've mentioned that you genuinely have love for your husband's children. He genuinely has love for your children. My question is that what if a person is in a blended family and they're not vibing with the kids?
Yeah. So I do find, I'll be honest with you, I do find one of his kids challenging, and it's been the subject of a lot of conversation between us. Um, there's, I, I raise my children with a lot more discipline. So that's the central conflict, right? But I had to really back off and be like, am I trying to impose my vision of parenting on another person because I'm Saadia Khan and I'm a master's in education and I've taught at schools for years, and like it's coming from an egoic sort of frame. Obviously, his parenting strategy has been working because the other children are evidence. So I need to just back off and let him do his thing. And I need to play a supportive role rather than coming at it from, oh, I know better than you and you better listen to me. Like, because that's just creating unhealthy and unnecessary conflict. And that's not really centering the child's growth. You will have anybody who's blending a family, you will have kids that you feel closer to and more compatible with, and you will have kids that you don't feel as close to. But just like that's just like your children. Like, how is that different? Right? So the Prophet ﷺ was very uh, strict about this. He told the companions to make sure that no matter how you feel, you are treating each child fairly, and Allah will ask you about it, you know? And a man came to the Prophet once and said, I bought this child of mine a gift, but not this child. And the Prophet scolded him. He said, what are you doing? Like if you're going to buy a gift for one, you have to buy a gift for the other. You can't play favorites. And now I understand because I've listened to so many women cry to me about the way their mother favored their sister or their um, brothers were treated versus the way they were treated. I've also witnessed during COVID, subhanAllah, the expectation that high school girls would run the house and watch the younger siblings and that their schoolwork wasn't as important. Meanwhile, their brothers were playing video games all day. And seeing that sort of inequality in Muslim homes, it breaks my heart because this is the complete opposite of what Islam teaches. Like all hands on deck, everybody is supposed to be involved in the upkeep and maintenance and the responsibilities of running a home. And so we don't have the gendered aspect here because we have five boys. I don't know if you know that. Out of the six children I'm talking about, five are boys, mashallah, right? So it's not so much that, but we have privately the kids we feel more comfortable or the kids we feel more compatible with and the ones that sort of grate our nerves, right? And we know that about each other. So that if that is obvious in the public realm of the family as a whole, then I think something's gone wrong. I think you've swerved from justice, as the Quran warns. The children should experience equality. They should feel like our home was based on fairness. But beyond that, of course, there's one of his children I'm particularly close to. right? I can't help it. And that child is the most affectionate with me because they feel it, right? So that's not something I ever planned or manufactured or anything. It just happened naturally over time. So, and then he has, among my two, he definitely has one that he's more comfortable with and more sort of, they have greater communication and more depth to their relationship. And that's okay too. Um, Not expecting like a uniform closeness necessarily with everyone because that's completely unrealistic anyway.
So you mentioned how both of you have unique gifts that you bring into this marriage and relationship. If you'd like to expand upon that and creating a family culture.
I mean, one thing we knew we had in common from day one is we're both really fun. We're like really playful and whimsical and childlike. And we're known for that within our own families. And that was like the number one quality I was drawn to in him because I knew I wanted somebody that was a really hands-on father. And I wanted a partner in building the kind of family I'd always envisioned. And he seemed completely on board. And that's gone exceedingly well. Like we have gone on so many vacations, we have done so many activities, everything from tobogganing in the winter to like swimming in lakes in the summer, fall walks. I've always done these things, to be fair. Okay. This has always been an intentional and deliberately planned part of my life. I'm a planner. He's more spontaneous, which drives me nuts. I'm that person that my entire next week is already planned out. Like it's color coded on Google Calendar. So not only is it planned out, I've got like 6 different colors going on, and I love that. So I think that was one of the reasons he was drawn to me. To be honest, he wanted somebody to bring a little bit of structure and organization into his life. And then one of the reasons I was probably drawn to him is I knew I'm overly structured and probably a bit boring in terms of my routines. And I probably needed somebody who would help me loosen up a little bit with regards to that. But we we just decided we're gonna have a lot of fun. Like childhood should be fun. It should be safe, it should be warm, it should be fun. So we do a lot of things. We probably do more than most other families. We play board games, we go for walks together. And there are times that the kids felt like they were being forced into things they didn't want to do. And we force them anyway. And then once they're there, they're having a good time, right? We we decided early on we're not going to let our kids and their moods dictate the family priorities or their schedule. And I said this to him really because I had witnessed now, back then I was teaching in Islamic school. I'd witnessed a lot of families where the child was in control rather than the parents, and the child didn't know what to do with that power, and it was chaotic. So I was just like, in my house, the kids need to know, like, I'm in charge. I'm going to make time for their fun, and I'm going to make time for them to relax, and they need to just trust that that's all going to happen. But I'm not going to let them run the house. Like that's like letting a tiny dictator on the loose. You know what I mean? Like it's just a recipe for chaos. So a lot of conversations with him behind the scenes, a lot. Like in the beginning, every day, every single day, we would go somewhere, come back to our room, do a regroup. What went well? What didn't go well? What are we going to do differently next time? Yeah. And again, I know you're thinking this sounds exhausting, but if the vision is to build this beautiful family culture, then you would be doing this work even if you weren't in a blended family. You would be doing this work regardless. And I actually recommend that everybody do this work, right? It's not for the faint of heart. It's not easy. Nothing worth it is ever easy. And there's such an assault on the family now from every direction. Like kids are being raised pretty much online, like by TikTok and by personalities on YouTube. And, like we want to take the reins back and develop such closeness in our families that our kids are even open to our influence, that when they have a problem that they come to us, when they're going through some kind of difficulty, they think, let me call mom, she'll know what to do. That requires thousands and thousands of investments with the same message. Your family is here for you, we love you, we're together no matter what, and I've got your back no matter what. And that's communicated like, from the time they're born pretty much right until the time they leave. In and there's no big moment you can communicate that. It's just thousands of tiny moments where you make the decision to be consistent. But I will say, like, we can't be good parents unless we are first in tuned to ourselves and what's going on for ourselves emotionally, and we're self-regulated and we're healthy. Like, how can I be a good parent to my children if I'm unhappy? My misery will be the energy in which they marinate. You know what I mean? Every single day they get to come home to my misery. And then, of course, they're going to absorb that misery and they're going to reflect it right back at me. If we want happy, well-adjusted children, we have to first do the work of becoming happy and well-adjusted ourselves. And that's not easy. And it's not a walk in the park. That's really requires intentionality. One of the things I often tell mothers is get up an hour before your kids. Don't wake up and be a mom the first second you're awake. You're going to hate your kids in the long term if you do that. That's a horrible strategy. There has to be a time of day that's just for you and where you're doing the things that make you feel full, whatever that looks like for you. It depends on the person, right? Like for me, I wake up, I have my tahajjud and fajr routine. I don't pray tahajjud every day. I want to, but I'm still like working on that. I have my routine of prayer. I have my Quran. I do some stretching or I do a workout. I have my journaling. Like these things give me energy. Now I've poured into myself. Now, when my child wakes up, I'm ready to pour into them. But if I'm up the same time as them, I'm like, oh my God, we're late. I have to start work. You have to get to school. I'm now like bringing this depletion and this frenzy, and that's what they're going to absorb. And I talk to kids too, by the way. And as a teacher, I talk to kids all the time. And so many of them find their parents really stressful to be around. And how could they not if their parents are perpetually stressed? So the first question is, what are you doing to take care of yourself? And are you running on empty? And do you think you're being a really good mom by being super self-sacrificing? Because you're not. It's not about being, cleaning the house and making sure food is on the table. It's about who you are, because that's what they're going to become. Like they're watching you. If I don't prioritize healthy eating for myself, then what are the chances my daughter is going to prioritize healthy eating for herself? If I don't prioritize reciting Quran every morning, even if I've got my kids in madrasa, what are the chances they're going to be reciting Quran every day and develop that close, loving relationship with God's book? It's just very minimal. And we all know those kids who went to madrasa or even became his, but they don't then ever recite the Quran again. Like it's done. I accomplished it. It's over. But it's so powerful waking up every morning and seeing that no matter what, my mom or my dad is engaged with God's book deeply, reflectively. Like that is so powerful to grow up with, right? What is it about this book that no matter what, every single day I see my mom sitting here like in contemplation. So a lot of people think parenting is what you do, but in my opinion, parenting is who you are. And that's just the root of it. So we had to really get intentional about who we are before we even had any of the conversations around what kind of parents we want to be and what kind of principles we want to set up to run this house.
So, Saadia, how would you recommend that a person increases her level of joyfulness to find that joy factor in life again?
Okay, so I actually love this question because I don't think it's asked enough. I run a group coaching program called Get Strong, um, a 16-week program, and one of the modules is inculcating joy in your life. And it's probably the favorite, gets everybody really excited. The thing is, like, joy is just being a child and remembering who you were as a child. So if you close your eyes right now and you imagine what you really enjoyed doing as a child, some images are going to start popping up, right? Just think about it. Being at the beach for me, blowing bubbles for me. I'm just sharing my own, right? walking in the rain and really looking for the splashiest puddle and then jumping in, right? Intentionally. So why did we let go of these things as adults and feel like we now need to be super serious and always, productive and always on? I think joy is not something you find. I think joy is something you have to deliberately inculcate. And I think if you've lost your way on remembering what joy looks like for you, just try and remember what joy looked like for you at an earlier stage in life. And we all have those things. And I've done this exercise with so many women, right? And they've told me painting or singing and dancing or, walking in the woods with my father or whatever. People have these memories and associations. And it's like, well, when's the last time you did that? You know, I'll give you one small story. Like one of my clients was going through a very difficult difficult problems in her marriage. I asked her, when's the last time you did anything for fun? And she's like, well, I mean, who has time for fun? I'm married and I have kids and I have a house to rent. And I'm just like, oh, wow. What did you do for fun when you were before you were all those things, before all those roles you had to play? She's just like, well, I remember I used to love getting up early and going ice skating. Like 2, 3 times a week, I would go ice skating. I was like, well, could you go once a week? How far is ice skating from you? She's like, oh my God, I can't do that. We worked through all the objections. She started ice skating. Suddenly her whole life transformed. She then started doing it twice a week. These small things are the fuel that all of us need to build resilience. And we really don't appreciate the role of joy because we think joy has no place in our lives. We don't have time for joy. We don't have time for just sitting and being. We always have to produce. We always have to be doing this or doing that or accomplishing this or achieving that. But who taught you that? Whose voice is that in your head that you always have to be achieving or accomplishing something? What's the harm in taking moments in your life and just enjoying yourself? And I promise you, like people who do this intentionally and with deliberate, consistent action, they're the happiest people around. And they're the people who can withstand difficult moments. They're the people who have enough of a bank account full of joy that when a withdrawal of pain comes around, they can handle it. Life isn't meant to be all suffering. I don't know who gave us that message, but it's not the message that Allah gives us. Allah in the Quran talks about laughter and tears and the alternating dual reality of this life being a swing between both. And what are we supposed to do? In good times, we show gratitude. In bad times, we show patience, right? And I'll bring this back to like our initial discussion about what a person can do on an individual level, because I know divorce is one of those times in your life where everything feels really heavy and gloomy and sad and depressed. And the last thing you are thinking about is going and splashing around in the rain or, trying to blow bubbles at the beach. It's the last thing on your mind. But what's the alternative? Shaitan wants us to fall into despair. So he's constantly whispering to us. Fill her time here. He's constantly whispering to us. Stay in bed. Keep the blanket above your head. Cry. Your life is over. There's nothing to look forward to. There's no hope. And I know all of those things, by the way, because I've experienced them myself. But when you decide to get up anyway and pursue joy deliberately, you are reclaiming your humanity, you are reclaiming your identity, and you're disrupting Shaitan's hold over you. You're saying, no, this is a sad chapter in my life. It's a tragedy that occurred. It was always meant to occur. It's Allah's decree for me. It was beautifully designed for me. It's going to level me up in the long term. And while I'm dealing with it, because the only way out is through, I'm going to have some fun. I'm going to go ahead and bring some moments of joy and disrupt this pity party. Okay. And what what's the solution to feeling happy again? It's the same thing as saying, how do we learn how to swim? We can either read about it in a textbook and understand the theory, or we can get in the water. And that's how you get through the tragedy of divorce. You don't sit and wait to one day feel better, like it's like some wind that's going to sweep you over. You have to take deliberate, concrete steps towards your own happiness, and no one is coming to rescue you. This is an inside job. Like, you've got to just get up and do it. And the beautiful thing about it is that the hardest part is doing it. Once you're doing it, you'll be fine. And I've had many women tell me that. Once you're actually engaged in joy, it's reflexive because it's such a big part of who we are as humans, right? Like, who wouldn't be inclined towards feeling joyful? But understanding also with your newfound maturity and depth and wisdom that these are two sides of the same coin, and you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. And when you have a good day, a bad day is just around the corner. But the joy is going to fuel the resilience to face the bad days. And if I could just like tell women one thing, like, I want every woman to know this, like, Allah wants the best for you. He doesn't hurt you to debilitate you, or it doesn't take away something to shatter you. The reality of heartbreak is you were probably too attached, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to break our attachments so that we come back to Him. So whatever it is in our lives, and we all have something that we're overly attached to, Allah will test us through that very thing so that we stop putting our hopes on the wrong thing and we start putting our hopes on Him instead. The breaking of the attachment, then, if you view it that way, if you frame it that way, is not something to feel sad about. It's something to feel grateful for. Like, if we see one of our children getting overly attached to something like a knife, we're going to take away the knife. We're not going to hesitate because we know the knife is going to hurt that child. The child will cry. They'll wail. They'll scream. They'll pound their fists on the floor because they really want to play with the knife. But eventually, they're going to understand that, of course, my mom had to take away the knife. The knife was going to hurt me. And in the same way, if you can get over the heartbreak of losing the knife and trust the person who took the knife away, that your well-being is always at the center of whatever is being done. Then, instead of being resentful or heartbroken or wallowing in despair, we can think to ourselves, I am so grateful. And of course, it's an oversimplification. And of course, there's things we won't understand for years, perhaps never, right? There's things we'll just be stunned, like, how did I lose this thing? Like, oh my God, how can Allah do this? But the thing is, in the hereafter, if not here, in the hereafter, it'll be completely clear why Allah did it. And there's no scenario where it wasn't done out of love for you. There's no scenario like that. It's impossible that something was taken away from you that wasn't done out of love. So if we can accept that, then we can make room for joy to come full circle and just accept the decree, make peace with the decree, because one level of faith is just to say, I feel grief. I feel grief about this. This is like the biggest loss of my life. This shattered me, and that shattering is gonna stay with me the rest of my life. Another level of faith is to actually be grateful. Like, maybe I was getting overly attached to something. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe this, maybe that. And now the one who knows me better than I know myself intervened to protect me. And that's beautiful.
Thank you so much, Saadia. I really enjoyed speaking with you. You've got so much to share, such a sincere, heartfelt conversation. I'll be sharing information for our community so that they can reach out to you at leisure. And I hope to see you again soon, inshallah.
Wonderful. I really enjoyed it.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.